Overall, this episode is a natural 10 out of 10, and I hardly can imagine how you can top that. Well played, MOP. Well played. You gave us even better episode. And yes, I am crying. Those are mainly tears, shut up! Yes, I am saying that right now. This episode is better than Royal Problem, and it didn't won me by some epic action scene and much needed development. Well, actually it did the second one. Still, this here win by being a pure tearjerker. I don't consider myself much of a romantic type, and yet I cry every time I watch it. And here's another thing. I pretty much can't find anything negative to say about this episode. Nothing. Even nitpicks I had right after watching it for the first time, in time grew on me, and actually are no longer my nitpicks after I've got a few thoughts on it. Some of course might argue that there actually are some issues, and I can't understand if people have problems with some aspects, but those are still minor nitpicks, which I personally can't explain why it's not a nitpick when you think about it. And let's also call it right now. CDHX, that's what happens when you take a risk. This season pretty much proves that. Celestial Advice, Royal Problem, and now this. Each one of those are great episodes that changed the status quo by actually telling some untold stories and gave us so much needed development. And Apple parents were in dire need of anything, even foreshadowing so we would at least get the design. And we got even more than that. We actually have their backstory, how they've met, the development of their relationship. And the fact that their story is a PG rehash of Romeo and Juliet's story actually helps this episode a lot. And even if the story is not out of realm of possibility, families like that do exist in real life, and if they are big enough, at some point their children might actually develop a relationship. But someone might say, this romance is not believable because love at first sight is not possible. A, it is. Example, Steve Irwin and his wife Terry. They've both admitted it was love at first sight. And B, this is not love at first sight. Yes, something sparked that day, but then they had like years to develop their relationship and move from friends to lovers. You know what? Someone has to be a really bitter person to dislike this episode. From the very moment Apples learned that they are half Pear, there is nothing but squeezing out the tears and wrenching heart more and more. At least right now I can't imagine more romantic story than Forbidden Love. Because of that, I'm not sure if I want to know the tragic story of why they are no longer around. On one hand, it would be good to know. But on the other, do we really need to break our hearts by knowing tragic details after this episode when we were rooting for them? Not to mention, Pear Butter is one of the cutest characters in the show, both by design and personality, and Bright Mac is not only a good role model, but also one of the few likable male characters in the show. And the song pretty much overloaded likability meter for them. Oh my god. If this episode would somehow turn out to be weak, this song alone would easily save it. With the recent musical numbers being rather hit or miss, this one pretty much redeems their sins. It's not just catchy for ear, but also for heart. Comparing to the rest of their story, this one have more positive tone, yet it plays on my emotions as much as said rest. And there already are at least 2 ladies singing this song for their boyfriends on YouTube, and I bet that's not the end. It's pretty much in the title, this is a catchy song. But after the positive vibes from the song, we move to the tragic part of the episode. Parting their ways and secret wedding, during which their parents discovered the truth about them. This is also the moment where some people are placing their negative, which is Grand Pear, how he chose the business over his own daughter. But here's the thing, it's not just a business, it's the whole Pear family. Suddenly he has to choose between the rest of it and his daughter, who also choose to be a part of a family he despises. All of those dropped so suddenly on him, so no wonder he couldn't think rationally in that moment. And I think even if he would have time to process this, he still would do the same. Years of that feud running and picking the good of the whole family over one member might look like the greater good. Sure, them getting married would end up the fight, but at that time he couldn't know, until later when he understood his mistake. And speaking of which, everyone were expecting William Shatner to voice Rainbow Dash Dad, but nope. Then we've met Grand Pear, an old stallion who wants to repair his past mistakes. Then we've learned that's William Shatner. Truly, he nailed this role. Even after the main story of Apple parents, his role kept squeezing my heart. Grand Pear sounds so natural, both as past and present self. I really felt regret in his voice when Apple confronted him. Hearing him like that, meeting his grandchildren, I just can't dislike him. Instead, I'm glad he's not another irredeemable character, and he's not the only guest star in this episode. Felicia Day also did a great job voicing and singing for Pear Butter. She nailed her role as well. Going back to actual episode, I also really like the similarities between Apple's siblings and their parents. Apple Bloom looked like her father, Applejack is a switch colors of her mother, plus freckles, and Big Mac being the mix of both, plus father's strong body. And there are also character traits, how Applejack is honest like Bright Mac, how Big Mac is hardworking type just like him, or how Apple Bloom is good in finding special talents of other ponies just like Pear Butter. Though, that was initially my nitpick for this episode, the fact that Apple Bloom's talent is no less unique. But more I thought about it, more I saw that would be a hypocrisy from me. Inheriting talents from our parents is something many of us can admit. Just like my father, I have a constructive thinking. And just like my mother, I know how to keep my mind calm. That way, I'm usually good at solving problems by calmly thinking about them. So it kinda still undermines the uniqueness of Apple Bloom's talent, but it's also not something I can point as a negative of this episode. Besides, pretty much many parents in Equestria share their same talents with their children. And we also have little things like using already established secondary characters, as well as one new, playing crucial role in telling the story, and how each one of them added some bits to it. Or how Granny Smith accepted Pear Butter in a family after she stood against her father. It's also interesting that this episode adds some new facts to the long-running debate name of the pony and its special talent. Apparently there are cases when some pony was given different name but changed it after getting their cutie mark. I can't believe I'm saying that, but this episode is perfect. Nothing negative, nothing to nitpick. I simply adore this one for great and long-needed development wrapped in touching story of forbidden love. Pear Butter and Bright Mac easily became a favorite couple not only for me, but for the major part of the fandom. This ship is pretty much saying, get on my level scrap, to Kitties and Shining Armor and Cranky and Matilda. At least in this case we have like full episode developing their romance, the romance that you can actually feel, while the previous two were just there. But it might have something to do with the fact of this story being both beautiful yet tragic, especially with the subtle yet strong implications of their tragic fate. Further you want in the episode, more it squeezes your heart. Voice work of Felicia Day and William Shatner also adds some emotional impact to it. Their role feels so real, so natural. At the end of the episode you feel nothing but like and compassion for them. This episode either proves that the statement there is no such thing as perfection is wrong, or it's just exception that proves the rule. Either way, this is our new best episode of this season and one of the best episodes of the series. It easily took that title from Royal Problem, and I both want and don't want to see another episode being even better than this one. I'm Shopwit and I'm too moved to think about the jokes, so thanks for watching.